Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Church Express. I am Kirk Ray Smith, and as always, I consider it to be a true blessing to be here before you this morning, to be able to share some truth. So, with that, we'll give folks a few moments here to join us on Facebook Live and YouTube Live simultaneously as we simulcast each and every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to kind of give you guys some insight and a little bit of information there as you wrap up your week and then also start your the following week here. I just want to give you guys again just a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of insight, something you can sort of chew on, think about, mull over, share with others. As always, again, if you can recommend folks send me friend requests, right here on Facebook under Kirk Ray Smith Senior. But also encourage them at the same time to just follow the Kirk Smith Unlimited page, and we're still a work in progress, building it up with more content and things of that nature. But also our YouTube channel, Kirk Smith Unlimited and Associates. You can also subscribe to that channel, and so again, just like our Facebook page is trying to build up traffic and that type of thing. But listen, at the end of the day, it's all about insight, it's all about wisdom, it's all about inspiration, it's all about encouraging others. That's really what it's about. I mean, there really is no other motive. I want to just promote truth. I want to promote insight. I want to promote the betterment of everybody, as many people as possible. If we can get some people to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior and decide to walk with God, man, that would be amazing. So with that, let's get lifted. Let's get lifted. So last week I talked about leadership. I talked about leading from the heart or with the heart. And I think sometimes when people hear the term leadership, they automatically go to someone in some kind of higher up position, whether it's again a supervisor, manager, directors, president, CEO, pastor, whatever. They automatically go to someone being in some kind of legitimate, recognizable leadership position with the title and everything. But leadership really is something that we're all involved in each and every day. So if you have a family, if you have, look, you can lead friends. Listen, you can lead yourself. So leadership really is applicable to all of us, and really on every level. So what I want to do is I want to talk about that today, about leadership on every level, what it involves. And so number one, you have to understand this. Well, there's three things when you start talking about leadership you have to have is discipline, stewardship, and accountability. Discipline, stewardship, and accountability. And that's what it starts with. That's really at the core of all leadership. You have to be disciplined, you have to be a good steward, and you have to be accountable. So what I'm gonna do, we'll get into those here as we go along. But let me talk about this and because see, we have to figure out a way to overcome our propensity, our tendency to try to control everything. And we have to allow God to do what he does. Now God has given us a mind to think. He certainly has. And we should use our minds. We should think. We should strategize. I mean, one mistake I've seen many people make is that what they would do is that they would figure if they kind of put it on God, put the onus on God, or blame God, or make something spiritual. Sometimes we have a tendency of using it as an excuse not to think, not to use our minds, not to be accountable for our decisions, and somehow put it off as something spiritual. When the reality is that we should have made a better decision in that situation, or we have an opportunity to do so. Does that make sense? So you have to take responsibility. We do. We have to take responsibility for our own actions. So here it is. So what I can control and what you can control is everything that you can see, right? Stuff that you can see, you have control over. Things that's within your grasp, within your reach, you have control over, right? More control over than things you don't see. But the things that are in front of you, the things that you see, you have control over. And so what I've learned how to try to control, to master what I can see and what I can understand. I've tried to perfect that. So whatever's in front of me, whatever I can see, whatever I can comprehend, then I want to try to make the best of it, maximize it. But what I've also learned how to do is to trust God to take care of things that he can see and the things only he understands. That there are things only God can see that you and I can't see. There's things that God understands that you and I may never understand. But there certainly are things that I can see, that you can see, and there's things that I can understand that you can understand. And so we're accountable for what we can see and what we can understand, and God will take care of the rest. So whenever us and God, whenever we link up and God takes care of what I can't see and what I don't understand, and I take care of what I can see and what I can understand, then together we can see everything, we can understand all things. So we can see all things, we can understand all things together with God. Does that make sense? So we have to get out of the way and allow him to do what he does, and then we do what we do. So in other words, just because I'm walking with God and I'm a believer and I trust him doesn't absolve me from accountability and responsibility. So I can't push my obligations off on God or my responsibilities off on God, leave it up to him when he has put it in my power, within my power, for it to be up to me. And what we do a lot of times, we try to over spiritualize situations, and we somehow put God in the middle of it as if he's the one that did it or he's the one that's driving that particular thing, when ultimately it is my responsibility, it's your responsibility. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, well, God called me to do this, God called me to do that, God told me to do this, God told me to do that, God told me to say this, God told me to say that, over and over and over. Well, if God told you to say or do something, okay, then do it. But a lot of times when we make mistakes, we like to blame God for it, or somehow God misguided us. Well, God doesn't misguide anyone. What's lacking is our understanding of what the things of God are. Does that make sense? So again, if God has put it in my hands and in your hands to control what we can see and understand, then we are obligated to do just that to the best of our ability. And then we trust God with the rest. Again, God is looking at stuff way ahead, far ahead of us. He understands things way beyond any of our comprehension. Our knowledge is finite. God's knowledge is infinite. His wisdom is infinite. So we have to trust him to do what he does, and then we do what we need to do. In other words, you team up with God. You are a co-laborer, a partner with God. So that doesn't mean that you can put everything off on him and blame him for all your mistakes and your errors and your bad decisions. Nor does it make sense, or is it a good use of your time or my time, that to do whatever we want to do and ignore God in all of our behavior and actions, and then somehow include him in the conversation when things get difficult. So if you don't include God at the outset, right, don't rush to him or expect him to respond to you when you get upset. Okay, so if you're not going to include God at the outset, then be careful about running to him when you get upset. That means when you get angry or mad or frustrated or upset in terms of a loss, where you thought you was going to win this particular thing and it didn't go your way, that's an upset. And then you say, okay, God, I need you to help me now that I'm upset, or God, or I was upset or frustrated or mad or at a loss. Now, there's nothing wrong with going to God when you're in trouble. Certainly, the Bible talks about that I look to the hills from whence cometh my help coming from the Lord. Absolutely. That you should go to God. He is a refuge and will protect you, right? But the Bible also says this: the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into him and are safe. So what that means is, one interpretation is that if you look at a tower, it's usually up high, it's elevated, right? So if you go into the tower, right, and then when you're in the tower, you're safe. So what is God saying is that he's not saying live out your life in a tower figuratively. He's saying live in a higher place. When you're in a higher place, then you're above ground. You're above certain things. Certain things are beneath you. Certain actions and behaviors are beneath you. And when I say beneath you, not that you're better than anybody else, but you can certainly make better decisions to put you in a better position so that you'll be better off, right, in the first place. So I'm not saying don't seek God when things get difficult, but how about seeking him before they get difficult and they won't be nearly as difficult? Does that make sense? All right, so that's our job. What you see and what you understand, you're responsible for. What you don't see and you don't understand, how can you possibly be responsible for that? And that's where God kicks in and does what he does. So he will elevate, you will grow over time and mature and become smarter and wiser. So you'll see more and understand more. And as you see more and understand more, God will, again, he'll elevate. And he'll be looking at bigger things. So things, in other words, things that we should be handling ourselves, we're depending on God to do it when he put the control in our hands in the first place. So basically what we're doing is we're trying to give God back the authority that he gave us. But that doesn't make sense. If God gives you authority, then maximize and exercise and assert yourself, assert your authority in your life, and then let God do the rest. Well, what point is it for God to give you authority when you're just going to give it right back to him? See, it doesn't work like that. I'm not saying don't pray and don't trust God, but you have to look at what God has given you already and maximize that. So if you have a child, God didn't lay down with that man or that woman to conceive that child. You did. So when that child comes into the world, yeah, you should dedicate your children. That's absolutely great. But dedicating your children doesn't mean that all of a sudden they're God's responsibility. If you have a child, that's your responsibility. That baby, you're responsible for it, not God. Now, you can ask God to help you and to guide you, and he will help you and guide you, but you're responsible for the child, not him. He didn't tell you what to do with that man or that woman. That was your choice. You decided. So now he'll help you, but you can see and understand your child. And when your children get older, they become more difficult to understand. Trust me. And then that's when you hand it over to God and let him take care of things you don't understand. But whatever you can see and understand, you're responsible for as a leader, even in your own life, even if you're just leading yourself. So again, simultaneously, God will take care of the big stuff. So when you talk about discipline is really what transforms your ideas into accomplishments. So if you have dreams and aspirations and things that you want to accomplish in your life, and that's great to dream, but in order for your dreams or your visions to become a reality, you have to have certain disciplines for that stuff to happen. So it doesn't just happen because you had a dream about it, or you cooked it up in your mind, or you hoped for it. You have to apply yourself and discipline yourself to a process that could take weeks, months, and even years for that thing to come to fruition. But you have to commit yourself. One simple example, people talk about, I want a house. I want to be able to get it, I want to stop renting, and I want to be able to purchase a home. Well, to purchase a home is going to require a few things. One of the fundamental basic requirements of obtaining a mortgage is having good credit. So what do? You just pray to God for good credit? Well, okay, but God's going to give you some steps and some processes around building your credit, getting to a level where you would even qualify for a mortgage, first and foremost. But there's things you're going to have to do, disciplines you're going to have to adopt in order to have better credit. That's the pathway to obtaining a mortgage, to be able to get a loan for a home, right? So you have to discipline yourself. You can't just believe in God for better credit and it just happens one day. You're not going to go from a 550 to a 750 because you prayed about it. You're going to go from a 550 to a 750 because you prayed about it and you got to work and you did your part to help bring it to pass. And as you're praying, you're working and praying and working and praying and working at it. And together with prayer and your heart and your efforts, your credit score will go up and put you in a position for a mortgage. See, that's how it works. Now, I know it's a simple example, but I think you get my drift. That if you want God to do something, then you need to be disciplined enough to put the work in to bring whatever that is to pass. Oh God, help me with my marriage. I want a happier marriage. I want things to be better between me and my spouse. Well, God is not just going to make things better between you and your spouse. It's not like he or she's going to wake up one morning and be nicer to you. Or you're going to wake up one morning and be nicer to him or her. It doesn't work like that. If you want God to bless your marriage and have a happier marriage, yes, you should pray about it, but you have to put the work in to bring it to pass. And there's certain disciplines you have to get there, right? Everybody wants to do well, right? But not everyone wants to put the work in that requires it to be so. Like we all want things to work out, but we don't want to work out to achieve the goal. And you have to put the work in to get to where you're going to get to in this life. He's not going to hand us anything. It's going to come down to our commitment and how dedicated we are to realizing our dreams. And I've heard people say, well, Kirk, listen, I don't believe in God or Jesus Christ, but I believe in a higher power. Okay, well, listen, if you believe in eggs, if you worship eggs, that's right, EGGS, if you worship eggs, then I would say yoke on. Yoke on, man. If you want to believe in eggs, then yoke. That's your choice. If you think that'll work for you, then hey, go for it. But I know that I have a proven formula. I know that God is real. Jesus Christ is real. He is the way, the truth, and the life. I happen to believe that, and that's okay, right? I can believe that, right? That's okay. So that's what I believe with my heart, and that's the formula has more than proven itself to me in my life is trusting Him, and it's worked for me. So that's what I do. I trust Him, and I understand that Kirk Ray Smith is limited, and I can only do so much. So I need God to fill in the blanks. But listen, just because I can only do so much I can't do everything, but I can certainly do something. You can certainly do something. So you have to take responsibility for your own life and your own actions, man. That's what I'm saying. That you want God to make a way, but you can't seem to find a way to do anything about it. God doesn't just arbitrarily make a way, right? You have to do something in order to bring that way to pass. In other words, the Bible says the word of God is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Okay, what that means is, okay, how can this? So all you Bible scholars out there, so all you anointed, long time people who just know the word, help me out because maybe I'm missing something. But how can the word of God be a light, a lamp to your feet and a light to your path if you're not moving? Like, I'm serious. Like, how can the word be a light to my path if I'm not moving? How do you create a path sitting still or standing still? So to me, that implies I get the word on, I understand it, and I get moving with it. Moving where? Forward, not backward. I don't have eyes in the back of my head, so I'm moving forward, right? Does that make sense? Discipline, man. It requires discipline and sacrifice. And you have to do the hard things. You have to do the difficult things, the uncomfortable things. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know, if you want to lead or be an influencer, then you have to be prepared to be mimicked, modeled after, followed, and talked about. And if you can't handle being mimicked, modeled, listened to, followed, and talked about, then you probably shouldn't lead, because that's what leadership requires. That's a part of it, folks. Discipline. Now, listen to this. Leaders must be tough enough to fight. Like a leader, you got to be tough enough to fight. That's right. Get them up. Tough enough to fight, man. How many of y'all tough enough to fight? You got to be tough enough to fight, tender enough to cry. Sometimes we cry. I cry. Some of y'all don't know, but I'm a crier, man. I cry just like that. Man, I can sit in my car and I can cry. I can listen to somebody telling me something, man, I can cry just like that. I can just be in my own feelings. I can just be sitting here right now and start crying. You got to be tender enough to cry. Real tears. Some people say, I don't cry. Man, crying is a good thing. Real men don't cry. That's a lie. Now, I know I'm a real man. And I don't know how you define a real man, but I think I'm one of them. Whatever your definition is, and I cry. But you got to be human enough to make mistakes. See, here's the error. A lot of people who are in leadership, or people who think, or somehow they're influenced, or whatever it is, they think they're above reproach. But you got to be human enough to make mistakes and learn how, man, to recognize. You know, human enough to make mistakes and humble enough to admit your mistakes. I am not infallible. I am a fallible human being. I make mistakes. As hard as I try not to, it's a guarantee I'm going to. I'm going to. It's a guarantee you're going to. Some of y'all probably look perfect. I know one lady that looks perfect. Y'all know who she is. Fill in the blanks. But she's not perfect. Right? She makes mistakes. I make mistakes. You make mistakes. But you got to be humble enough to admit it that you made a mistake. And not just about, I'm sorry. But you do have to learn how to apologize or recognize when you make a mistake. Sometimes you can beat people to the punch. If you recognize you make a mistake, if you're self-aware, man, a lot of times, man, you'll recognize that mistake long before anybody else has to tell you. If you're really self-aware and you take self-inventory, and I make mistakes every single day, despite my best effort. I say things I shouldn't say. I think things I shouldn't think. I look at things I shouldn't look at. You know, I have certain feelings that I should be past by now. And I have to work on that stuff, folks. Then you got to be strong enough to absorb pain. You got to, as a leader, you got to know how to take blows, man. Sometimes these blows, they come out of nowhere. They come out of nowhere. Sometimes it's a shot across the bow, man. You just, all you heard was a sound, and boom, right in the middle of your situation. People talk about you behind your back and set you up for failure and say negative things about you that you don't deserve, man. People who say they love you, but yet they're doing stuff behind your back and you don't discover it till months, sometimes years later. That stuff hurts, man. That stuff hurts. Or they betray you, set you up, sell you out, whatever. Things happen in life that surprise you, you wasn't prepared for, whatever it is. See, as a leader, you got to take shots and absorb pain. You know what it means to absorb pain? That means, man, when that stuff hits you, man, right, you just suck it up. You get off the mat, man. Bam. But you got to keep moving through this battle that we call life. This is a battlefield, man. Sometimes more than a battlefield, it's an all-out war zone. But you got to keep going, pressing towards whatever it is your division is, or whatever your purpose is in life. You got to keep going. It's like riding a bike with no hands. Some of y'all remember that. Back when kids used to ride bikes. I don't know if kids still do it. And we used to ride with no hands. And when that bike got wobbly, man, I would grab the handlebars so I could get back steady so I wouldn't fall. That's what it's like sometimes, folks. You just riding and doing whatever, and all of a sudden things get a little shaky, a little wobbly, and you got to hold on and grab to that purpose and remember what you're here for. Remember where you came from. Don't forget that. Getting a little too prideful, starting to smell yourself a little bit, man, and you need to be reminded of where you came from and what it was like before you had any of this. You got to remind yourself, man, because listen, pride will trick you into failure. And you got to be resilient enough to bounce back and keep moving. You got to be resilient enough to get off the mat. Boy, have I had some hard days. Boy, have you had some difficult days. Sometimes we get emotional thinking about what we've been through and what we suffered and seen, man. Imagine, right? You're busy at work hard all day, you're tired, you drive home in your little beat up car, and there's a yellow or pink sticker on your door saying there's an eviction notice. Imagine that. I've seen that before, man. Imagine how that feels. I mean, looking around at your children, and you know there's things that they absolutely need that you can't provide for them, and you don't have the resources for it. What does that feel like, man? Or you go to work and they call you in the office and say they're going to let you go. That they're not happy, or they're doing mass layoffs and they got to clear out a department and you got to go. You're one of the casualties. Here's a couple bucks to get you through the next couple weeks. Imagine those things, or you get a diagnosis. It's devastating. Or you hear bad news about somebody. It's devastating. But see, guys, we got to bounce back. We know God's in control. Remember what I said earlier? At every level, I'm leading on every level. So I'm saying, okay, Kirk, this is what you see. This is what you understand. Control it. So whatever you can't see or understand, you got to know that God is in control of that stuff. That's his job. He does that. You don't do that. Stop worrying about everything and trying to control the entire narrative and everything and every person around you. Life isn't set up for everything to be perfectly positioned in these little grids. And God does not operate on our agenda, nor does he live by my schedule or your schedule. It doesn't work like that. He does what he does on his schedule, his agenda. That's not, listen, never you mind. Don't worry your pretty little head. You control what you can see and what you understand to the extent that you can. And that's it. And let God take care of the rest, because one thing I know about God, he always has a master plan. And I know for me, my pursuit in life, see everybody, but I'm gonna talk about me. I want to be, listen, I'm pursuing perfection, but I realize that perfection is not a goal that I can reach tomorrow or next week or next month or even a year from now. But the pursuit of perfection is a lifelong journey of improvement. That I am on a lifelong journey of perfection. So what makes me perfect is not me, Kirk Ray Smith, being perfect, but it's the journey, the pursuit thereof. That makes me perfect. That's the perfect scenario. Is that it's a lifelong journey of trying to get better than I am now. No matter how good you think I am, no matter how good I think I am, no matter how good they think I am, or even how bad, doesn't matter. Wherever I am, I can be better than this. Wherever you are in life, you can be better than that. Man, you can have all the money in the world. I hear people talk all the time. If I had $1 million, $10 million, $20 million, or hit the lottery, whatever, man, that stuff ain't gonna bring you happiness. That stuff will never give you complete peace and pure satisfaction. That's not the, okay, here, take it all right now. Here's $50 million. You happy now? Now what? Now what? See, I want to be better, a better human being at my core, at my center, a better person all across every aspect of who I am, because I know the day is going to come when I got to stand before God, man, and give an account. So my pursuit of perfection, I'm trying to get ready on this journey to see him for myself. Because I don't care who you are, you can come with all the distractions and all the noise that you want, man. You can live 50 years, 90 or 120. But the day the reckoning is coming, you're going to have to reckon and give account for that life that you lived on this earth. Did you take full responsibility for the stuff that you saw and the stuff that you understood, or did you just let it blow by and you put it all on God? If you're going to be a steward, then we all need to know as we get closer to the end, we're all stewards on this earth. And we are taking responsibility for somebody else's property, God's property. So we got to watch how we treat ourselves, how we treat other people, how we treat what we have, because we're nothing but stewards, man. We're taking care of what belongs to him. People belong to God, not us. So we have to treat them and be careful how we handle people, how we act towards people, what we wish for, how we pray for people. Watch that envy and being a hater and watch that. The jealousy is dangerous. Careful, because we're stewards, man. Over everything we have, God owns it at the end of the day. And then when you're accountable, that means that you can lean on other people so they can help you be your best you. Lean on them. Accountability. Mentors. People who can check you, check me. Accountability. Someone, listen, that's going to question when you do certain things. Folks, it's okay to be questioned. It's not a bad thing if somebody questions you, particularly people who care about you. So we got to come off of that pride and stop letting pride get in the way of real progress in our lives, spiritually or otherwise. If I want to maximize my time and my purpose in this life, then I got to learn how to be held accountable and learn how to be accountable. And so, guys, as we wrap up, man, listen, this is all about, what leadership involves at every level. At every level. Got to be disciplined, got to be good stewards, got to be accountable. But the thing I really want you to spend a lot of your time thinking about as you ponder this week is those self-disciplines. Are you disciplined? Do you have what it takes? And then can you trust God with the things that you can't see nor can you understand? And are you willing to be disciplined and take responsibility for what you can see and what you can understand? So if I take responsibility and I'm accountable for what I can see and understand, and I trust God to take care of what I can't see and what I don't understand, then together we'll see everything and we'll understand all things. So with that, you guys have an incredible week. This has been the Church Express. Remember to share as much as you can. Make comments, and what I'll do is I try to respond to every comment. That's what it keeps the post alive throughout the week. But you guys are amazing. God bless you. Looking forward. So March, so we're in March. This is Women's Month. This is where we recognize women all month for all their great deeds. So look forward. It's going to be some great stuff. We're going to be posting around that. I actually wrote a really good piece about women in power that I'll probably share at some point. But you guys have a great week, and God bless you all. Appreciate you. One.